So before I get started with the podcast today, I want to invite you guys to get on our Friday freebie email list. If you're not already on that, please make sure you get on that. We send out weekly PDF cheat sheets, emails that cover different nursing topics from mental health, OB, peds, med-surg, pharmacology labs, whatever it is. We send one out every Friday where you get these for free. You can print them off and you can use them in class. But I want you guys to get started on that. It's over at NRSNG.com/freebies. That's NRSNG.com/freebies. And I also want to thank all those who have left a review for the podcast. That greatly helps. You guys, I'm so honored that you are sharing, that you're using this podcast, that you're listening to it, wherever it is that you're listening to it. That is truly a great honor to me, and I love reading the reviews. I love getting the emails and the posts on social media about those who are using the podcast. So thank you so much, guys. It's such an honor to be, the #1 nursing podcast. I appreciate that, guys, and we love you. Now let's roll into the show. Everybody look to your left. Now everybody look to your right. One of those nursing students won't be here on graduation day. Now, how many of you heard that when you were starting your nursing program? I hear from a lot of students that, that's the first thing you're told when you get into your program. And how many of you that heard that thought to yourselves, wait a second, someone's looking at me, and that nurse that's not going to make it is probably me. I'm the nurse here. I'm the lucky one. I'm the only one who somehow slipped past admissions and got into this program, and everybody's going to find out real soon that I'm the dumb one. I want to share with you 4 significant moments in my nursing career. These are moments that were pivotal to my career, yet I felt unworthy of the success and accomplishment that came along with those achievements. And now my goal with this podcast, my goal with this post, is not to provide myself some sort of self-therapy, some sort of talk therapy. On the contrary, I really want and I really hope that by sharing these experiences, you might avoid some of the fate and find a new sense of joy in your accomplishments and begin to feel proud of what you have done. So my experiences, I want to share with you these experiences. The first one was in 2011. It was the first day of spring semester 2011. My wife and I had just moved across the country for me to begin nursing school. This was the first time I was going to meet my new cohort. I remember walking out of the snow into this small conference room to see a group of about 25 or 30 people. Those 25 or 30 people were my new nursing cohort, and we were going to go through hell and back again on our journey to RN. Now, I walked into that small conference room, found an empty chair, sat down, and I tried to be inconspicuous, and I tried to avoid being too obvious as I peered around the room, trying to quote-unquote size up the competition. Immediately, as I was doing that, a chilling thought ran down my spine. I said to myself, I'm the lucky one here. Everyone else here is so much more prepared than me, and I hope no one discovers how dumb I am. Oh well, you're probably going to fall out soon anyway, and everybody's going to discover that. So that was one of my first thoughts as a nursing student. Then a couple years later, in 2013, it was another first day. This time it was my first day on the job as a new grad nurse in the neuro ICU of a large Trauma 1 hospital in downtown Dallas. The room was packed with brand new nurses, brand new hires. And again, I arrived early at the meeting, found an empty chair. There was a bunch of desks set out, and HR and administration was all there. And we had these little folders. Now, before I could even open that orientation pamphlet and start thumbing through all the papers they'd given us, the same thought entered my mind. Keep your head up, smile. No one will realize that you're the lucky one. Somehow your application fell through the cracks. All these other new nurses probably went to better schools, did better internships, and will survive nursing orientation better than you. They're all going to make it through. You're going to be the one that fails out of orientation. Now, about a year and a half later in 2014, I had another experience. I remember I sat my wife down and told her I wanted to start a website, and I was going to call it NRSNG.com. On the site, I was going to post study aids for nursing students because I felt like I was gypped during my nursing school experience. I felt like I deserved more as a nursing student, and I felt like nursing students deserved a voice for them, an advocate for them. And I wanted to help future nurses have a better educational experience than I did. She looked at me and she said, wow, that's a great idea. You should do it. And then there came that voice again. said to myself, are you crazy? Who's going to want to listen to you? What have you got to share that will help future students? People are going to trash you online and tear you apart. They're going to know that you're a terrible nurse and even worse teacher. And then just 1 year later after that, in 2015, it was about 7:15 p.m., my ICU manager pulled me aside and said, John, we're going to start training you to be a charge nurse tomorrow. Show up an extra 30 minutes early for your shift tomorrow. Now, after the initial shock wore off, you guessed it, the same thoughts came into my mind. Why would the nurses on this floor listen to me? You're not prepared. I'm not prepared to lead a unit. Somehow, Judy, my manager, doesn't realize how mediocre of a nurse you are. She will certainly regret her decision to make you a charge nurse after you run the unit into the ground. Now, you might be listening to these and you might be thinking, gosh, man, you're beating yourself up so much, but what I want to introduce to you guys, this thought called imposter syndrome. Now, full disclosure, I want to tell you guys about a problem that I struggle with, and I struggle, obviously, with imposter syndrome. I've always struggled with this for as long as I can remember, in high school, as a child, in college, as a nurse, and now, running NRSNG.com, I still struggle with this. What is imposter syndrome? Let me read you a quick little definition of what imposter syndrome is. Imposter syndrome is a concept describing high-achieving individuals who are marked by an inability to internalize their accomplishments and a persistent fear of being exposed as a fraud. Despite external evidence of their competence, those exhibiting the syndrome remain convinced that they are frauds and do not deserve the success they have achieved. Proof of success is dismissed as luck, timing, or as a result of deceiving others into thinking they are more intelligent and competent than they believe themselves to be. Some studies suggest that imposter syndrome is particularly common among high-achieving women. So essentially, despite achieving great things, despite doing wonderful things, getting into nursing school, passing the NCLEX, getting a job, starting NRSNG, all those things, despite praise and compliments, despite external accolades, if you suffer from imposter syndrome, you might feel like a fake. You might feel like you don't deserve the success that you have, like you just got lucky. And you might feel like everyone else around you is somehow more prepared than you are. You might even believe that you're not intelligent, that you just got lucky, or it was really good timing. You just applied to the right program at the right time and just got insanely lucky and got in. There's a few things about imposter syndrome, a few elements that I find really interesting that I think apply specifically to nurses and nursing students. It exists in high-achieving individuals. Hello, that's nurses. It's more prevalent in women. Obviously, nursing is a female-dominated field still. Another thing I found, guys, is that it affects as many as 70% of individuals. We all feel like, from time to time, that we're the dumb or we're the lucky one. Imposter syndrome in nursing. I think as nurses and nursing students, we're even more prone to imposter syndrome. First of all, as we're starting out in nursing program, we're surrounded by brilliant individuals who are all driven, dedicated, and intelligent. Secondly, in many instances, we are faking it as nursing students. When we go to clinical, we are playing nurse, trying to provide holistic care to our patients with very little knowledge base. It's tough. And starting out as a new nurse, it's the same thing. You walk into the room and it's like, hey, I'm your nurse. Yeah, I just graduated yesterday, but here I am now as an actual nurse, and trying to provide this care. So in a lot of ways, we are faking it, and that kind of builds onto it. We've done these great things, You get a job at a level 1 trauma center, a brand new nurse grad, and you already feel like a fake. You feel like you don't deserve that. But then you realize you actually do have to fake some of this, and so it builds on it. Now, with that said, it's equally important that you learn to recognize this syndrome in yourself and discover how you can root it out and move through the feelings of unworthiness and doubt. What I want you to understand, guys, is through those 4 examples I mentioned above, those were real thoughts I had. Those were real doubts I had. Those are real feelings I felt about myself. Despite all this external, from the outside, my wife saw me get accepted to nursing school. Great job, John, you did it. Internally, I'm thinking, yeah, I got lucky, Obviously, this is an easy program, obviously, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. We start NRSNG, and it's like, great, you're doing this website, you're going to help so many people. Yeah, externally, that looks great. Inside, I'm beating myself up. I get an A on a test, and it's like, great job, you did so good. That's what people see externally. Internally, I'm thinking, well, it's probably an easy test, somehow I don't deserve that. Somehow I faked it through that somehow. Now, what I want you to see is from those 4 examples I shared above, I kept going. I didn't allow those moments of doubt to stop me. These feelings of doubt and inadequacy creep in all the time. Even now, as I lead this team at NRSNG.com, some days I'm confident as hell. Other days, I'm scared as hell. And now, as nurses, our primary goal is to provide the best care possible for our patients. Now, while caring for another human being can be terribly intimidating, terribly terrifying, just scary, feeling worthless and doubting yourself does no good for the patient. So you really need to learn to recognize this imposter syndrome in yourself and how to get rid of it or how to move beyond it. So let me ask a couple questions and see if maybe you have imposter syndrome. First of all, have you felt like this when good things have happened to you? You know, when people give you compliments, have you looked at it and said, well, I got lucky? Or when you get into a room of other smart people, your first day of nursing school, after a nursing test, did you look around and think, holy cow, maybe I'm the lucky one? Like, people are going to find out that I don't know what I'm doing. If you're reading this and thinking, that sounds like me, you might have imposter syndrome, but here's a couple other ways that you might be able to identify it in yourself. First of all, diligence. Do you feel the need to work harder and harder so others don't discover you as an imposter? Sadly, what happens with this hard work is as you work so hard, you get better and better. You get smarter and smarter, and you begin to get more success, and you begin to get more praise, which perpetuates the cycle. I want to tell you about an example with this. As you might notice from the timeline above, I became a charge nurse fairly quickly on my unit, within about a year and a half of working. And the reason that happened, guys, is because I literally felt like I was the only intern in the entire hospital that was just fake, that I didn't know what I was doing. And so what I did, guys, is I studied during my shift. I studied at home. I brought home notes. I built this huge binder of things. I was studying all the time. It's all I did was study nursing, study ICU, study neuro disorders. So I could learn everything I could because I did not want to be exposed as someone who didn't know what they were doing, because that's how I felt. And so I began to learn. My knowledge grew and grew and grew, where quickly people began to notice that. And it's like, hey, John, you're going to be a preceptor. Like, I didn't even feel qualified to be a nurse. And here I was being made a preceptor. So these feelings of inadequacy began to grow and grow and grow. And that led to more studying, which led to more responsibilities, which led to more praise, which led to me then doubting myself even more. So diligence. A lot of times what happens with people like us who have imposter syndrome is our diligence to avoid being exposed leads to additional successes. Another thing that you might do if you have imposter syndrome is you might feel like a phony. Do you feel like you're simply giving professors the answers they want? Do you feel like you're just saying things so that people get the answers they want? What happens when you do that is you begin to feel like a phony. It's like, I'm just saying what people want to hear. Another thing that might happen with people with imposter syndrome is you might use charm. As a driven individual, as a motivated individual, you probably have an intuitive gift of charm and the ability to connect with others. Now, do you sometimes feel like you use this gift to seek relationships that are beneficial? That you use this ability to charm people to get a job, sit down, have a good interview, get a job, to impress your preceptor, to do things that they want to see, to impress them, to charm them. What happens with this, guys, is recognition in these relationships can lead to feeling like you simply are getting these positions because of your charm versus your skill. Now, I want to be totally honest with you guys. When I had my nursing interview for the job I ended up taking, I prepared greatly for it. I rehearsed answers. I dressed nicely. I got all prepared. And I went in and I tried to, charm the interviewer, charm the manager. And this was all done with preparation. This was all done with knowing the answers and preparing ahead of time and working hard to do well in this interview. But what can happen as you do all that preparation, as you charm, as you use your people skills, is then you begin to feel like, well, I only actually got the job because I interviewed well. I didn't get the job because I have a good resume or because I worked hard or because, I'm going to do good at this job. I got this job because I charmed them. And so then you begin to say, like, I'm only a fake. Like, I'm only here because I charmed the interviewer, not because I deserve this job. Okay. Another one that can happen, guys, is you might avoid displays of confidence. Do you avoid showing confidence in your abilities or downplay your abilities? Do you feel like believing in yourself will drive others away? Do you ever try not to show that you know how to do something? Or do you ever not put your best foot forward, and try to show that confidence? Or when When people say, hey, you did a really good job on that test, or you did really well there, or can you show me how you did this because you're really good? Do you say things like, yeah, I'm good, but I need to study more. I need to improve here. I need to do this. I need to do that, blah, blah, blah. Do you ever do that? Do you ever downplay your confidence? Do you ever downplay your abilities so you can avoid looking confident? That might be another symptom of having imposter syndrome. Now, I want to give you guys a couple tips. I want to give you just 4 tips for how to overcome imposter syndrome. If this stuff is feeling like it's something that you have, I want to give you 4 tips on how to overcome it. Now, it's important that you learn to not only recognize it in yourself, but you learn how to overcome it. You learn how to go beyond it, okay? Because by doing so, I want you guys to be able to recognize and enjoy your successes. And I want to help you reach your full potential. And I want you to love yourself rather than loathe yourself, okay? I want you to get beyond all this. I don't want you to sit in nursing school and think, I'm a dummy. I don't belong here. Everyone else is so much smarter than me. I want you to sit there and think, man, it's just like, how wonderful is it that I'm here now? I've worked so hard. I've taken all the prereq classes. I've worked my butt off. I remember those nights of studying in Nat and Phys, preparing for my T's, taking my HESI, doing all these things so that I could be here. And look, it has paid off. How amazing is that? And I'm so thankful for that opportunity. So I really want you guys to be able to have that experience and that reality versus sitting there and thinking, holy cow, I bet they scored better on HESI. I bet they were better at anatomy than me. I bet they were, and get beyond all this. The first thing I want you to do, guys, is I want you to stop comparing yourselves to that person. Stop comparing yourself to someone else. Life is not a competition. The only person you can compare yourself to is you. You're growing. That's all that matters. There will always be someone smarter, prettier, faster, someone who can do better IVs than you. There's always going to be somebody better at whatever you're trying to compare yourself about. Also, it's important for you, it's impossible to know every variable in someone's successes. Okay, and it's impossible for you to understand what has gotten them to where they're at. You can't know everything that led to them being a good test taker, a good studier, a good IV starter. And get this, none of us have the same starting line nor the same goal. Okay, none of us have the same starting line or the same goal. None of us started at the same point, and none of us have the same goal in our nursing careers. None of us have the same goal in our academic careers. Therefore, we aren't even running the same race as anyone else. Better stated, it's not even a race. That person you're comparing yourself to on test taking doesn't have the same educational, doesn't have the same nursing goals, doesn't have the same family goals, doesn't have the same life goals as you. So you're not even going for the same end. You're not on the same track. You're not running the same race. You're not running a race. You're going different directions. Stop comparing yourself to those people. Have you improved in your IVs? Have your test scores improved? Are you doing better than you were last time? A second tip I want to give you is to keep a file of people saying nice things about you. This might sound a little weird, but one of the first things I started doing when we started NRSNG.com was to keep a file of compliments. We started a folder called compliments. Every time we got a nice email or a nice review, and every time we still get those emails and those reviews, we put them in a folder called compliments. And I often refer to this folder whenever the nasty thought comes into my mind is, why should anyone care about what you have to say? Why would anyone care about NRSNG? No one really wants to hear what you have to say. I go back to this folder. I read these nice words. I read from students saying, if it wasn't for you, I wouldn't be doing nursing school anymore. Thank you so much. You've changed my life. Those things help me to remember why I'm doing what I'm doing, that I'm giving back to people. It reminds me that nursing students all over the world have found success thanks to NRSNG, and it pushes those thoughts out of, it doesn't matter what I think. I'm putting my best foot forward, and it is helping people. Whenever a patient writes you a nice note, a teacher writes you a nice note, a family member writes you a nice note, a preceptor writes you a nice note, save that. Whenever you get a nice work review, save those. Because there's going to be moments later on when you're going to think, I'm just a terrible nurse. Well, you know what? Open that letter that a patient gave you that says, you know what? Hey, thank you so much for taking care of my mom. Save those notes, because that's going to make you realize, you know what? It doesn't matter that I think I'm a bad nurse. I'm working my hardest, and it's affecting patients in a positive way. Another tip I want to give you to overcome imposter syndrome is to accept that you have had some role in your success. You're not just lucky. Now, it's crazy to think that you got into nursing school on pure luck, or that you got the job because your resume slipped through the cracks somehow. What I often tell newbies is, it's the admissions committee or the manager's job to determine if you should have the job or not, or if you should get into the school or not. Once that decision's made, realize it was their decision. They looked at your resume, they looked at your qualifications, and they deemed you worthy. They deemed you capable of doing this. Now let it go. Don't worry about it anymore. That's not your role anymore. You are where you are due to your success, due to your hard work, and due to all your efforts. Now realize that you've done all that work. Like we said earlier, you went to anatomy class every day. You made flashcards. You studied all those things. That's the work that you did. And you belong where you are because you did all that. The last tip I want to give you for overcoming imposter syndrome is to be honest. Realize that nobody knows what they're doing. 9 out of 10 startups fail. Great nurses fail the NCLEX. I have horrid grammar skills and I run a blog with over 1,000 posts. You will make a medication error as a nurse. The greatest of the greats failed too. Everyone knows, Michael Jordan didn't make the basketball team in high school. The greatest of the greats fail. Failing doesn't mean you're a fake. It means you're human. Be honest about what you know and don't worry about it. And be honest about what you don't know. If you don't know something with a patient, not knowing the answer doesn't make you a terrible nurse. Not knowing the answer on one test doesn't make you a terrible nurse. Be honest, say, look, I can't recall that information right now. I'm going to go find out, and I'm going to come back to you as soon as I know. That's okay. You're human. You can't know everything. Okay? Now, in conclusion, guys, if you feel like you have imposter syndrome, realize you're not alone. Most people are terrified to admit it. It creates a lot of vulnerability, and to admit that I doubt myself all the time is hard. My point is, rather than giving in to the toxic rhetoric that nursing admins love to share on the first day of nursing school, that I shared at the beginning of this podcast, look to your left, look to your right, one of those students will fail out. Look, I want to reword it. Look to your left, look to your right. Chances are both of those nursing students are scared as shit and feel like they're going to fail out too, just like you. You guys, you're not alone. We're here for you. I know how terrifying it can feel to think that you're a fake, to think that you're a phony, but you're not. You've put in the hard work. Even when you don't believe in yourself, if you're part of the NRSNG family, I believe in you. We know you can do this. I want you to set one goal for yourself this week. I want you to be a little bit easier on yourself this week. All right, guys, now you know what time it is now. It's time to go out and be your best self today. Happy nursing.